fully approve of the bombing against Iran, because having an Iranian-backed nuclear power in the hands of mad Islamists is the worst idea ever. I am not silent on that issue. I fully support what is happening.
You're going to support...
How does a debate about diplomacy suddenly escalate into support for military action? This isn't just a disagreement over foreign policy, it's a deeper clash of logic, priorities, and principles. As this conversation unfolds, you'll notice something important. Both sides are looking at the same situation, but interpreting it in completely different ways. And that's where the real conflict begins.
A celebration of Iran's Islamic Revolution at the Iranian embassy in London. The event came weeks after reports thousands of protesters were killed by their own regime in that crackdown when they protested in January. Priti Patel called the move disgraceful, while the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office said attending such events is a normal part of diplomacy. OK, let's talk about this one. It did shock me. I have to admit, it did shock me. Let's come to you first on this one, Martin. What did you make about this? Foreign Office, civil servants going to party at the Iranian embassy just weeks after the regime had killed thousands of people protesting on the streets in Tehran.
Well, Dawn, you're not going to get me defending the UK's Foreign Office or the Iranian regime on this show, but it was Iran's National Day, and we do have diplomatic relations with Iran. And for the UK, it's actually quite important that we have those diplomatic relations.
Why?
And even more so now.
Why?
When Iran is facing an illegal war from Israel and the US.
At this point, diplomacy is framed as a necessity, regardless of how controversial the timing may seem.
We've got to pursue...
Why is it important to have diplomatic...
Because we've got to pursue diplomacy. When war is happening, almost always, the only way to stop an illegal war like this is to pursue diplomatic openings and avenues. So it is really important for us as a country to keep those diplomatic relations
It doesn't make any difference. I'm sorry, it doesn't... Straight away, it doesn't make any difference, does it? At least 20 Iranian murders and kidnaps have been disrupted by our security services since 2022. Diplomacy doesn't work. They're still trying to kill us.
I mean, diplomacy has to work, and it is something that it has succeeded in the past. Do you think it's important that we keep diplomatic relations open for other countries,
not with
Israel?
The regime,
Israel, for example,
not with the regime that's trying to kill us.
Israel has been accused of committing genocide in Gaza. Should we keep diplomatic relations open with Israel?
Israel haven't declared death to England. The Islamic regime have.
They've been accused of committing genocide in Gaza.
I'm not talking about genocide in Gaza. I'm talking about the Islamic regime killing their own people and declaring death to the West, death to England.
We cannot have double standards in our diplomacy, though.
Right, OK. OK, let's bring you in on this one, Matt.
Here, the discussion shifts from Iran itself to a broader question of consistency and double standards.
Well, I think there's maintaining diplomatic relations, which is one thing, and then there are members of the British state, civil servants paid for by taxpayers, standing in silence for a rendition of Iran's national anthem, listening to speeches in which Iranian officials hailed Iran's remarkable accomplishments, and doing all of this on the very same day that we learned from a US human rights group that at least 7,000 Iranians had been butchered by the Iranian regime, including more than 200 children. What we have in the British state, Dawn, is an activist class of ideologues who are not impartial, they're not neutral, they're not objective. They're the same people who said they'd go on strike over the Rwanda policy, the same people who said they'd have listening circles to make it through a clampdown on illegal migration. What has happened to the British state is it has become utterly ridiculous. It's become politicised. And what we need to do is lop off the top tier of the civil service and remind the civil service what it's supposed to be about, which is impartial, neutral, objective work on behalf of the democratically elected government of the day.
Now the argument moves beyond diplomacy to the question of neutrality within state institutions.
OK, Ian's got in touch. They should be sacked. What would you like to say to Ian?
Well, a few months ago, Keir Starmer welcomed Israel's President Isaac Herzog to the UK.
We're not talking about Israel. I know Israel and Gaza is a situation.
Don, this is important though, because you're talking about crimes against humanity and the Iranian regime committing crimes against the Iranian people. What has happened in Iran is absolutely horrific. But if you are going to criticise Iran, you have to criticise other countries like Israel. President Isaac Herzog has been photographed signing bombs that were then dropped on children in Gaza. Why are we welcoming people like that to the country? And there's absolute silence from yourself, Matt, on that issue. Did you criticise that?
Why? I'm just curious. Why does everything... You're with the Greens now, are you not?
That's
I believe.
Right, yeah.
Why does everything, absolutely everything, come back to Israel?
Because there's double standards always.
Can I talk about double? Can I ask you a question? Double standards. We hear a lot from the Greens about the importance of fairness, tolerance, and openness. Why was the deputy leader of the Greens at the pro-Iran protest in London recently? Why was Mothin Ali at that protest?
A clear pattern emerges. Each argument is being expanded into a wider global comparison.
Was a Stop the War coalition and campaign for nuclear disarmament.
Stop the war, right? Indeed, it's just interesting.
That was an anti-war protest.
It's just interesting the way in which it's interesting the way in which the nice, fluffy Greens always seem to line up on the side of our enemies.
Not true at all.
I've not heard you talk about Nigeria. I've not heard you talk about Sudan. I've not heard you talk about a number of other human rights abuses happening around the world. What I see, Martin, is an obsession with Israel, which, I'm going to be honest, on the left, the discussion of Israel is frequently tinged with a pretty ugly intolerance, actually, or pretty blatant anti-Semitism among some.
Here we go.
We're talking about Iran. We're talking about why servants of the state are going to parties at the Iranian embassy, singing songs, listening to the anthem, and listening to speeches praising a regime that's murdered its own people.
Listen, I do not think that the civil service should have attended that event.
Good.
But they need to keep diplomatic relations open. But I also don't think that there should be so much political influence from Israel in this country.
What's Israel got to do with this discussion? What's Israel got to do with this discussion?
Because you are calling out crimes in places like Iran. At the moment, Israel is bombing Iran. It's got everything to do with it. You are absolutely silent.
At this stage, the focus turns to selective outrage, what gets attention, and what gets ignored.
Whenever anything comes to Israel, you have never called out Israel at all.
Martin, let me not be silent. Let me be very loud. I fully approve of the bombing against Iran because having an Iranian-backed nuclear power in the hands of mad Islamists is the worst idea ever. I am not silent on that issue. I fully support what is happening.
You're going to support fuel prices going past $200 a barrel then? You're going to support all our energy going through the roof? You're going to support food prices? You need to stand behind that, Matt. Let's bookmark this comment.
Please do.
Because the cost of living is going to absolutely explode
Martin,
because of that illegal war.
It's very difficult to debate.
It's a really bold move for you to back that war.
In case the Green Party were not aware, and as viewers of this show will know, we had the highest industrial electricity prices before anybody dropped a bomb on Iran. And why is that, Martin? Is it because of the insane? Is it because of the insane net zero policies that your party is advocating?
Listen. Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz. You think fuel prices are bad at the moment? I don't know when you last filled up your car, Matt, but fuel has gone up by about 25p in the last week.
Do you know what? I'd rather pay more for my petrol than have mad Islamists with a nuclear weapon.
Right. Okay. All right.
But wouldn't you?
Listen, there's no evidence that they're even trying to get a nuclear weapon.
My goodness.
Show me the evidence.
Okay, this worldview terrifies me.
Show me the evidence.
Terrifies me. Iran is one of the major threats to Western civilization. We should not have to go back to what this debate was about originally before we went off on a detour around Israel and everything else.
The debate reaches its peak, framing a direct trade-off between security risks and economic consequences.
There's no double standards here. I don't want taxpayer-funded civil servants hanging out, going beyond what is necessary, hanging out with Iranian officials on the very same day that we're learning that this hideous regime that you're coming pretty close to defending, actually, on this show,
Not at all.
was responsible for murdering 7,000 Iranians.
I started by saying that.
Then we
But
have something in common.
Yeah, but what I won't defend is like ridiculous double standards. You refuse to call out any actions of Israel. I'm sure you'd be very comfortable shaking Benjamin Netanyahu's hand, a guy that's wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes.
I've stood with Israel after October 7th.
I mean, it's a disgrace.
I think
Israel is
one of our closest allies.
Well, listen, they are being accused of genocide in Gaza, okay? And, those crimes are comparatively way worse than the crimes that are being committed by Iran.
How many people have died in Gaza since October the 7th?
Well, there's various calculations.
How many?
There's various calculations.
How many?
There's arguments that it's over 200,000 people, and about 2/3 of those are women and children. And you're defending that.
I'm not defending
You're
any.
defending that.
I'm not defending.
You're saying you're standing, but you're standing with Israel.
Listen to me. I'm not
killing
defending
women and children.
No.
Indiscriminate killing.
Martin.
Starvation.
Martin.
Claims of genocide.
I'm not defending any of that.
Both sides clarify their positions, but the disagreement only becomes more defined.
What I am
You just said
saying.
you stand with them.
No, I have not. I've said very clearly, we maintaining diplomatic relations with all countries around the world is not the same thing as what the story that we're debating is about, which is officials from the British state going beyond basic diplomatic relations, singing national anthems, listening to glowing speeches on the very same day that thousands of their own citizens have been murdered. That's not acceptable to me. As a British taxpayer, that's not acceptable.
Well, similarly, it's not acceptable to me, but it's also not acceptable to me that we still stand with Israel.
Not everything is about Israel.
I know, but I'm just highlighting your double standards.
That was a question I was about to ask you, Martin. We are running out of time on this section. But why, whenever we talk to anyone, as Matt's just said, from the Green Party, everything does come back to Israel?
Because it's a genocide.
But we're not talking.
It's quite important. It's quite important,
but we're not. That is not the debate.
And it's ongoing.
That is not the debate we're having tonight, though, Martin. It is about our civil servants, paid for by you and I as taxpayers.
When you step back and look at this debate as a whole, what becomes clear is that this isn't really about a single event. It's about how different people interpret responsibility, consistency, and priorities. One side argues that diplomacy must always remain open. The reasoning is simple. Without communication, conflicts escalate and opportunities for resolution disappear. From this perspective, engagement, even with controversial regimes, is a strategic necessity, not an endorsement. The other side draws a sharper distinction. It argues that while diplomacy may be necessary, symbolic actions matter. Attending events, showing visible participation, or appearing to celebrate alongside a regime, especially at sensitive moments, can send signals that go beyond basic diplomatic engagement. In this view, neutrality is not just about maintaining relations, but also about maintaining clear boundaries. Then there's the question of consistency. Throughout the debate, one recurring argument is that international reactions are often uneven. Some conflicts receive intense scrutiny, while others receive far less attention. This raises a broader issue. Are global standards applied equally, or are they shaped by political alignment and strategic interests? Another key pattern is how quickly the focus shifts. What begins as a specific question about civil servants attending an event evolves into a much larger discussion involving multiple countries, conflicts, and historical grievances. This expansion can make the debate more complex, but it can also make it harder to resolve the original question. Ultimately, this debate doesn't provide a clear answer. Instead, it reveals something more important. People aren't just disagreeing on facts, they're operating from entirely different frameworks. And once you recognize that, the real question changes. It's no longer just about who is right or wrong, it's about which framework you find more consistent, more logical, and more convincing. What do you think? Was this necessary diplomacy or a step too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video.